Hey YouTube, this is Wade from Everyday Sustainable. Last Wednesday, April 28th, was Biden's 100th day in office. Just over 100 days ago, I posted a video where I talked about Biden's first 100 days and why they're so important from a climate change perspective. Man, I really need a haircut. Anyway, in today's video, we'll be grading Biden's first 100 days from a climate change perspective. Of course, Biden has dealt with other issues in the past 100 days, namely coronavirus vaccine distribution, the recession caused by the pandemic, but we will only be grading him on his climate action today. The beauty of grading Biden in this way is that he's the one who set the grading rubric. In my previous video, I discussed 14 things that Biden said he would do in his first 100 days to take action against climate change. 11 of those things he said he would do on his very first day in office. So we will get to take a look back and see what he did, what he didn't do, and what is still in progress. You may have heard of the Earth Day protests where some climate activists from the group called Extinction Rebellion dumped cow manure on the street and had signs calling for Biden to stop the bull. Others felt this was unfair to Biden. Well, in today's video, we'll get to take a look to see if Biden's climate action has had substance or if it's all been bull. I'm sitting in the teacher's seat and I'm ready to grade Biden. As I mentioned at the top, there are 14 items that Biden said he would do in his first 100 days. I'll start with the 11 items he said he would do in day one, and then I'll move to the other 3 he said he would accomplish in the rest of his 100 days. We'll give him a grade on each of those items, and then we'll total them up to see what his GPA has been and give some concluding thoughts. Oh, I almost forgot. I recruited a friend with some better hair to remind us what those 14 things are that Biden said he would do in his first 100 days. Let's start with the first item he said he would do day one. Use full executive authority to reduce emissions. The word full is tricky here. You could certainly make a case that Biden could have done more with his executive orders, but he did already do quite a lot. This one is really an umbrella term that covers the rest of the items, so for now I'll give him a C and we can move forward with the second item. 2. Ensure all new federal vehicles are zero emission vehicles. On this item, Biden receives a B-. It could have been an A-, but he loses a full letter grade for being late. He mentions this in his executive order from January 27th, which wasn't technically his first day. It was his 5th day, but we can give some leeway there. Even still, this is not yet happening. All new federal vehicles are not yet required to be EVs. But this is a part of Biden's American Jobs Plan, his infrastructure plan, that was introduced on March 31st. Again, it's a little late, but it is still in process. But I am pleased to hear that Biden is still pushing for this item, including it in his infrastructure plan. At some point, he needs the Congress and Senate to step up and make this plan legislation and get it passed into law. Moving on to our third item, ensure efficiency in federal buildings. Just like the previous item, Biden earns a B- here. He put this in his executive order from January 27th. It's included in the American Jobs Plan on March 31st, but it is still just a plan and it's running a little late. So we'll give him a B-. We're pleased that he's still talking about it and pushing for it, but it's not yet law. The fourth item, limit transportation emissions through the existing Clean Air Act. On this one, unfortunately, Biden earns a D-. I can't find information about this anywhere. So either it didn't happen or Biden mislabeled his assignment and the teacher can't find it, so a D-. Moving on. 5. Set standards for light and heavy duty truck emissions. This one's the same as the last item. Biden must have hit a bad streak. He either forgot to submit his homework or mislabeled it because the teacher can't find it. Moving on to our sixth item, invest in biofuel development. This one's a little tough to grade and we're gonna have to spend a bit talking about it. Biden said he would do this in his climate plan that he released before he was in office, and since has done nothing and has not even continued to talk about it. But this may actually be a good thing. Some scientists say that biofuels are not that helpful. They even call them bridge fuels because biofuels still use oil and still emit carbon. You may have heard of ethanol. That's an example of a biofuel. So it uses oil, but it incorporates things like corn to dilute the oil and to use less carbon. So it is a step in the right direction, but essentially scientists say we don't need those bridge fuels. We should just be making investments in things like electric vehicles. It seems like Biden got that memo. He continues to talk about the importance of investing and improving our electric grid, investing in electric vehicles, and as we talked about earlier, requiring all new federal vehicles to be zero-emission electric vehicles. So we could ding Biden for not doing what he said he was going to do, but we could also applaud him for pivoting in a more helpful direction. Biofuel lobbyists, of course, are unhappy with this change, and they're even trying to push him to get investments in biofuel included in his infrastructure plan he released in March. Let's hope that Biden doesn't reverse course again. For now, let's abstain from giving him a letter grade here, and let's just give him a pat on the back for pivoting away from bridge fuels. And let's move on to our next point. 7. Develop new appliance and building efficiency standards. Biden receives a B- here. Like several earlier, this is in his American Jobs Plan, but it's still just a plan at this point. And let's jump to our next one. 8. Require that all new federal infrastructure projects account for climate change and emissions impact. Another place where Biden earns a B-. He's still talking about it, it's in his American Jobs Plan, but again, just a plan at this point. Moving forward. 9. Require private companies to disclose climate risk in operation. This is an interesting one because it's not Biden that's picking up the slack. Actually, a bill was introduced on April 15th by Elizabeth Warren and several other co-sponsors that would require this very thing. It's like when you have a group project at school and everybody else in your group picks up the slack. But hey, as long as the work gets done, you can still take the credit for it. And you could make a case that Biden's aggressive climate action has paved the way for Warren and these other senators to sponsor this bill. But it still is late and these senators are having to pick up the slack for Biden. So I'm gonna have to give him a D+ here and move on to the 10th item he said he would do day 1. Preserve biodiversity and conserve America's land and water. Here Biden earns a B+. In his executive order on January 27th, he formed interagency groups with this specific purpose. There's a really great Washington Post article that tracks the progress of the Biden administration in this area of protecting land and water. It shows the regulations they've added, the regulations they've proposed, and then it also talks about the regulations that the Trump administration rolled back and the number of those that the Biden administration has already overturned, the ones that they're targeting, and the ones they've yet to do nothing about. It's a really helpful resource. It's linked in the description down below, along with many other resources that I've talked about today. But just real quick, I want to give you some of the numbers because I think it's helpful to have an idea. The Biden administration has already introduced 21 new regulations to protect land and water, and they've proposed 8 others. Turning to the regulations that the Trump administration rolled back, there are 29 that the Biden administration have already overturned and 71 others that the Biden administration is targeting. But still, there's 120 regulations that Trump overturned that Biden has yet to do anything about. Trump was a busy guy rolling these things back. But still, Biden earns a B+ here. He's formed interagency groups to work on this. He's already introduced new regulations and overturned some of those that Trump rolled back. It's a solid B+. And we'll move to the last item that Biden said he would do day 1. Rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. And he did just that on day 1. Not day 5, not 3 months in, but day 1. So that's great. He earns an A. Good job, Biden. That's how you earn an A, buddy. This one connects directly to the first of the 3 other goals that Biden said he'd accomplish in his first 100 days. So let's turn straight to that. But I think I can handle it since I'm already on the topic. Thanks, bud. So the first of the 3 things that Biden said he'd accomplish in the first 100 days is holding a global climate summit to encourage countries to go beyond their Paris Climate Accord goals. And he kind of hit this goal. He put in his executive order in January that the US would host this summit. The summit happened on Earth Day a few weeks ago. In other words, there's still no teeth here. Nothing happens to a country if they don't meet their goals. Maybe that's still coming, and this is obviously hard diplomatic work. But he's not quite where he said he would be. He made a lot of great progress here, but there's still a little more ways to go to get to the finish line. So we'll give him a B, and we'll move to the next 100-day goal. Reforming the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. There's not too much to say here. Biden did mention plans to reform the IMF in his executive order in January, and he did bring the importance of this up to his address to Congress in his 100th day address just last week, but no progress has been made. So we'll give Biden a D+, and we'll move on to the last goal he said he would accomplish in his first 100 days. Demanding an end to fossil fuel subsidies. Biden made more progress on this one than he did with the IMF. It's included in his infrastructure plan that was introduced on March 31st. Biden is pushing legislators to make this law. I'm pleasantly surprised by that. Of course, Biden can't get full marks because it's not yet law and his 100 days are up, but I am pleased to see that he's still pushing for this. The fossil fuel industry are giants and they have a lot of power and money to get their way. So to see that Biden is taking them on, trying to end subsidies for them, this is huge. We're talking about billions of dollars, and it would be a huge victory for the fight against climate change. I've totaled up the grades we've given Biden to get his climate change GPA, and he has earned a 2.27 GPA. It's passing. It's a C average, a solid C. Not passing with flying colors, but it's passing. But you can understand why the activists from the Rebellion Extinction Group were upset with Biden, calling his actions bull. He hasn't done everything he said he was going to do. But then again, what politician does? I think it's important to balance out the critiques of Biden with the fact that, as Michael E. Mann points out, who's a climate scientist, that Biden has made the boldest action on climate as any US president ever. Stated another way, Biden's C becomes an A+ pretty quickly when we grade it on a curve. But maybe that's not saying much though, as many US presidents did not do nearly enough for climate change. Even Michael E. Mann admits that the time for bold action is now. The fact that Biden has been the boldest US president on climate change ever should earn him some credit, but he still needs more. We should do more. So the truth between those protesters and Michael E. Mann is maybe a little bit in the middle. The point is, Biden is on the right track. He's made a lot of great steps, but we're not to the finish line yet. And the beauty is, his presidency isn't yet over. This arbitrary line of 100 days is just that, arbitrary. He still has 3.5 years in office, and maybe a second term, who knows, we'll see. He has lofty goals and plans to get the US there. Let's hope we can get those done. And let's not just hope, let's get involved. This week, for the first time ever, I called my representative, letting them know that I would like to see my representative take drastic action on climate change. Please, I encourage you to also contact your representative. I must admit, I've been told to do that a number of times and I never have done it up until this week. I was nervous about it. I didn't know what to say, who to call, where to get the information. But guess what? I've done all that work for you. Links in the action section are down below. There's some where you can just email your representative. I would encourage you to at least start there. But then also the phone calls are really quite easy. You put in your information, it tells you who your representative is, what phone number to call, and even what to say when you're on the phone. You just fill in your name and say the script. Most of them, it's even just a voicemail. Like I said, I was nervous to do this, but I was so glad that I finally did do it. Representatives are meant to do just that, represent us. So call them, make your voice heard, let them know that you would like to see them make drastic action to fight climate change. So please take that step with me and contact your representative. At the bare minimum, send one of the emails. But I would really encourage you to make a phone call. I was nervous and anxious too, but you can do it, I promise. I'm so glad that I did. May we be better citizens of the world today and every day. See you in the next one.